Hey everybody, and welcome to the 20th episode of Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast, and the 4th week of the Michigan Football/Big Ten podcast. This week we're going to talk about the historic shellacking that Wisconsin put on Michigan in the Big House this week. We also touch a little bit on the rest of the Big Ten as well. We also answer a fan question. We actually had someone ask a question for us to discuss and talk a little about the targeting rule. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the show, but without further ado, let's hop into this week's episode. Week 4, here we are with, wow. What, much of the same, huh? Much of the same.
Yeah, pretty much you could just put it on a record. You know, if we had the record from the last couple weeks, you could probably just put that on and change the team name that we play against, and it pretty much would be the same story.
Oh, man. I didn't have high hopes coming in, but I had higher hopes than 49-11.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Goodness gracious.
I at least thought we would have more than 11 points. And even though the defense is horrible, I figured we would give them 49, just because I figured Wisconsin would get ahead, and they would just grind it, a few yards here, a few yards there, just to continue to get first downs. I didn't figure they would go that high, but man, they did. They put up 49 on us. It was not pretty.
Man, coming into the game, we had Hutchinson out, who's most likely done for the year, and then we get news that Kwity Paye's out. So you're taking, the two biggest guys off the line, which, even though they haven't had, Michigan's not had any sacks the last 2 weeks, you're still taking two anchors of that defensive line out of there. But, man, it just came out so unprepared. Even coming out of the locker room, watching them come out of the tunnel, slapping the banner. I picked that up from the beginning of the broadcast, man. No enthusiasm. None.
It's sad. It's very sad. We did get one sack, though. I don't know. I mean, the defender must have, or maybe the offensive, maybe the quarterback just, maybe he just was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Maybe. How sad is that? No sacks in 2 weeks. Now 1 sack in 3 weeks. Just unacceptable. No pressure at all.
Nope.
Well, Wisconsin. We come out. Wisconsin wins that toss. They take the ball, which I'm like, wow, that shows what people think of our defense right now. But
yeah, exactly.
But we have a pretty good stand on defense. Got out of there. I think they got the ball to maybe midfield and they had to punt. So it's like, okay, maybe we're gonna do something with the ball here. What did you think after that first stand?
I was actually excited. Like you said, they pretty good first defensive stand. I know Josh Ross missed a big sack that really, could have sent them even further, deeper than what they were when they did have to punt. But, they punted, and I was like, well, maybe something changed up a little, something different here, and we'll see what happens. And, man, if Milton didn't just crush my hopes and dreams on the first play.
On that pass, obviously there's a lot of blame to be placed on Milton because he tried to put a ball where he shouldn't have. But that ball's got to be caught. That ball has to be caught by Eubanks. That ball's there. It hits him, right in the hands. I don't know. From the angles I saw, I couldn't tell if Wisconsin's defender got his hand in there to knock it loose. But, man, Eubanks is a big kid. You need a big play in that situation. You got to come down with that ball.
I agree.
So
it was that was a tough one. After a decent defensive stand on the first, to not give up a touchdown on the first drive, which for us is a win right now. But then to turn around and have him just throw a pick on the first play, it hurt.
Right.
And then Wisconsin immediately turns around and just goes right down the field. I don't know. I mean,
4 plays, man.
To see, I think 3-4 plays, something like that. It was ugly.
Yeah, but even after that, on the next kickoff, Giles Jackson had a pretty decent return. Get to about midfield, you're thinking, okay, maybe we'll put something together. Then very first play, there's a penalty called. False start or illegal shift or something like that, which just kind of sets him back again. And the next play, Milton threw maybe the worst interception I have ever seen. That might if it's not the worst, it's top three. I have
Yeah, dude. Like, I was actually, I mean, watching that, because of course at the time they had the camera behind him, and he threw, and I was just staring at the screen, and I'm thinking, okay, you're 6'5". How in the world do you not see the ginormous guy in all white uniform directly in between you and the guy who I don't even understand how he could see the guy because of the defender in his way.
Right. Just that's just locking in on one receiver the entire time and not reading your progression and saying, "Hey, I'm going to this guy no matter what." And I mean, he underthrew him by 12 yards.
Oh, for sure. He threw that ball directly into that guy's chest.
Right.
I mean, I do not understand how you do not see that guy standing there. It's just unbelievable.
And after that, Wisconsin takes it down 4 or 5 plays again. They're back in the end zone, 14-0, real quick. You're deflated at this point. You can tell it just took the little bit that they may have had in there was completely gone. The first quarter goes by, man, and we're down 14-0. 129 yards of offense for Wisconsin. We have 1 yard of offense in the first quarter. 1 yard.
Yeah, it's sad.
Wisconsin.
I know. I think at the may have been either at the end of the first quarter or may have been right before it. But at some point, they dropped a stat on the screen, and I think it was right at the beginning of the second quarter. Wisconsin had 7 first downs in the game at that point, and Michigan had ran 7 plays.
Right.
That's unacceptable. Like, I don't. It's just.
And third down, something that continues to kill Michigan's defense. The week before, they gave up 9 of 13 third downs to Indiana. This week, they give up 8 of 13 third downs to Wisconsin. Just brutal, man. You can't keep making stops on first and second down only to give up a big third down play, at a 60% or 55 to 60% clip.
Completely agree. And a lot of times, those third downs, I mean, it's not like we're talking like a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, something where you really got to bring. It's like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, and we're giving them up with ease.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just sad. Again, no fire, no intensity, no. And I've read this a lot, and I completely agree. Harbaugh's completely lost the team. This team doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust them. The players don't trust each other. It's just there's one point in the game where I saw a little bit of fire, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But up to this point, there was just nothing there. There's no. Again, you get behind 14-0. There's no sense of urgency. There's no. The play calling remains atrocious. We're trying to run this speed and space, but the blocking's terrible. You can only get guys to the outside if you got people who can block that edge for you, and we just don't have that. I mean, Corum, I don't care how fast he is, he's running for 2 and 3 yard losses. It seems like every time they try these sweeps.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how fast the guy is. I mean, if you're letting people in the backfield, unless he's running the opposite direction, it ain't gonna make a difference.
Exactly, man.
It's just it almost. When I think about it, right now with the whole COVID, protocols and not having all the fans, I could not imagine how that stadium would sound with 100,000 plus just absolutely booing at the performance of that team.
I was there in 2008, I believe, 2008 or 2009 when they played Wisconsin and were down big at halftime. And they just got booed off the field. Absolutely booed off the field. Come out in the third quarter, fourth quarter, put it together, and actually came back and won the game like 28-26 or 26-24. Can't exactly remember the score. But, yeah, if there were fans there last night, dude, and rightfully so. I mean, you don't want to boo the kids. I don't think it would be so much of them booing the kids as booing this coaching staff,
Yeah.
It's
any of those boos, would be targeted at Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaching staff for not having these kids prepared and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yep, man. Like I said, they came out, they punched it down our throats on the first 2 drives, and then before you know it, it's 28-0. The first quarter or the first half's coming to an end. We got a little bit of momentum going there in the second quarter late. we were able to get down the field a little bit, and we have what we thought was a touchdown to Chris Evans. Of course, after replay, his knee was clearly down, so they bring it back. And the most just baffling call of the night, you have, 6 inches to go. You have a 6'5" quarterback. Hey, let's just put him under center. Let's go right up the middle.
There's no reason whatsoever that he should not have been under center.
Well, my thing is too, they bring him
shotgun.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, in shotgun, I mean, you snap it back 3-4 yards.
Yeah, right. So instead of
you immediately you toss it back 6 feet where you need to go forward 6 inches.
Absolutely.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
And to top that off, they get in the shotgun. Wisconsin calls a timeout once they see, okay, here's what it looks like they're going to do. We got to adjust. Michigan doesn't adjust. They come back out in the same formation. It's like, what, Gaddis, what are you doing? So, of course, Milton tries to run right, and he ends up, 3-4 inches short of the goal line and just completely sucked any kind of... Because right there, you score there, 28-7. Okay, that still stinks, but you're only down 3 scores. You get the ball coming out, of halftime. You can maybe cut it to 28-14 and get some momentum going. You're at home, bring it back in. But, man, that was it right there. As soon as he was stopped, any fleeting hope that you had, you knew was completely gone.
For sure. And, you think, where the ball's on the 6-inch line, I mean, hey, maybe we could go, bring in a bunch of big bodies and try to push him back and maybe get a safety or something. No, I mean, 2 plays later, they're out 15.
And, kudos to Wisconsin, man. We know what Wisconsin is. I think there was a stat that said they've put like 29 offensive linemen in the draft the last few years. There was 13 or 14 that were first-round picks. You know what they're coming with. They're going to run it down your throat. And, man, we just had no answer. There was absolutely no answer for it. They did what they wanted. I did think that Graham Mertz didn't impress me in the game, and I think we kind of held him under control. I don't know if that was more of us holding him under control or him just not being on after being off for 3 weeks.
Well, there was that, but for the most part, what did he throw? Maybe 19? I can't remember exactly what his 20, somewhere around 20 times is all he had to throw. But that's just it. He didn't have to throw. Like when you run the way they do, I mean, I think they averaged what was it, 51 carries, I think, for 340, 350.
Right.
Dude, they averaged over 6 yards a carry. He wouldn't have had to throw the ball at all.
Right.
So, I mean, did they keep him in check? Maybe. Or did he just not need to throw the ball and need, to take over and lead the team down the field? My passing the ball. He didn't need to.
I think too, being off for 3 weeks, I think there were some plays that he had guys wide open and he missed them. I think that's just some rust.
I agree.
I think that's just rust. I think he's going to be a stud. The kid, he has a presence back there. He's going to be really good. But again, man, I love the coaching of Wisconsin. I think Christ is a great coach. Jim Leonard, defensive coordinator. I don't know if you remember when Leonard played at Wisconsin, he was a stud. So to have somebody like that there, controlling your defense and like, man, just you keep him, you pay him whatever you need to pay him because he's got these guys firing all cylinders right now, and they're going to be a tough team to beat. They really are.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I did see the at halftime, scores 28-0. That is the largest halftime deficit that Michigan has had in the Big House since it opened in 1927.
Yep.
How sad is that?
Well, that's 2 years in a row under Harbaugh that Michigan's been down 28 points to Wisconsin at half.
Wow.
Yep. Remember last year they went in and got pistol whipped in Madison as well,
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's crazy to think about when you've had Rodriguez there, you've had, the Hoke era and the Rodriguez era, and they didn't even give up that. They didn't even get behind by that, but it's again, it all harkens back to Harbaugh's completely lost. The team is just, they're not responding. Unfortunately, this was a big game where you had a lot of recruits that were there, a lot of commit, people who were already committed, a lot of kids that you're hoping will commit. And I did see one nice tweet after the game from, J.J. McCarthy, the 5-star quarterback who's hopefully coming in, and who knows. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't seem to be wavering. He told everybody, hey, look, take 3 deep breaths, calm down. They're in there working hard. We're going to get this thing turned around, whatever. But man, words are words, dude. I need to see results on the field. I need to see you can have a good attitude, you have that positive attitude, and that's great. But I'm gonna need to see some results on the field.
Yeah, it's tough. People, as you said, words are words. They can tweet out, they can, social media all they want to, trying to hype the team up. But do you really think that deep down he's like, man, I really hope that they can get this turned around a little bit, because do I want to go up there and walk into this dumpster fire that's going on right now?
Yeah, I think some kids like Graham Mertz take the challenge of, Mertz could have went to Columbus, he could have went to Tuscaloosa, but he said, hey man, I want to start a tradition here in Madison, and some kids want to do that.
Right.
There hasn't really been that good pocket passer, that good NFL caliber quarterback at Michigan since Chad Henne, and that's 12 years ago, man.
Right.
And maybe this kid sees, hey, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna change things around a little bit. We're gonna get this program to back to what it was. But
I hope so.
Just brutal, just a brutal game. Coming out of halftime, that first drive put a couple nice plays together. Got down the field, start moving it. Got a first down or two, and then we have
Ronnie Bell had a couple real good catches.
Yeah, and then we had a couple of incompletions when we went deep. I think Milton ended up being like 1 for 6 or 1 for 8 on throws over 20 yards. Just he has no accuracy. So we settled for a field goal. It was nice to see Nordine come in and get, hey, nice. At least get our field goal kicker some practice, I guess. But, then it's 28-3. And again, the next drive, I think it was the next drive or the drive after, they pull Milton. McNamara comes in, who comes in and lights a spark, man. He led them on a nice little drive there. A couple big plays to Bell and to Eubanks. Or actually, I think it was Bell, Eubanks, and then he hit Sanderstill in the end zone for that touchdown, which was a great catch by Sanderstill. Super catch.
Yeah.
But, that kind of lit a fire. This was the only point of the game where I saw any emotion, any fire. The team was pumped up. They were slapping each other. They were yelling. I'm like, man, where's this at? Where's this been?
I agree.
I liked what I saw. Then they went for the 2-point conversion and got it. I liked what I saw from McNamara. I think he was 3 for 3 for 72 or 74 yards on that drive. And I'm telling you, just from that drive, the rest of the game didn't go great. I think he completed maybe 1 out of the next 3 passes. Didn't have a big opportunity, obviously. But I've seen enough that should be your starter for next weekend's game against Rutgers. I think, the season's lost. Yeah. The season's over. Time to set Milton. Let him watch a little bit. Maybe he can bounce back from this. Maybe not. Maybe Cade comes in and Cade shows you, hey, I should have been starting the entire time. I mean, I don't know because we've never seen him, but I liked what I saw on that drive.
I agree. I mean, I was pretty impressed with, what I did see from McNamara. To be quite honest, like when Milton was named the starter this year, I was kind of baffled by it all, because I would have thought for sure that Dylan McCaffrey was going to be your starter this year. I would have had no doubt. I'd laid money on it, just from what I saw last year, him coming in and backing up Patterson, and just what he did show in the games when he was in last year. I mean, he had good movement. He got outside the pocket, made plays with his legs, made really good throws, and I expected him to be the quarterback. And then when Milton was named the quarterback, I was like, what just happened? And then Dylan goes and puts in for transfer. I was like, well, okay. I really hope that Milton caught it, because the next guy up is a true freshman.
Yep, I read something. I read something today, and I don't know how legit it is. It's not gospel, but just reading some rumors of why Dylan said, hey, I want out of here. It was some stuff he wasn't happy with in practice and way things were handled, and he went and spoke to his parents and asked what they thought, and he decided to go ahead and get out. From what I've heard from the rumors, he was leading. He was ahead in spring ball. He was the number one. And I mean, he comes from that pedigree of, all the McCaffreys, dude. They're a
super athlete.
Right. Why I don't understand the glimpses I saw of him. The only downfall I saw of him was he didn't get enough opportunities. But when he did, he was a little bit reckless. He instead of getting out of bounds when he should have, he's not that Milton body type. He's a tall, lanky kid, and he tries to get those extra yards, but man, he really puts himself in a position to get hurt, which unfortunately happened a few times. But I'll take that all day over a guy who's 6'5", and I'm going to run out of bounds a yard and a half short of the sticks instead of putting my head down and barreling through.
Exactly.
So it was just sad, watching a little bit of the Nebraska game and seeing his brother there quarterbacking for Nebraska, and then seeing up in the stands that Dylan's there in the stands watching the game while Michigan had a game that night. Just frustrating. I don't understand. Obviously something internal was going on because, this kid, he was going to get a play. Basically all these kids this year can play for free. It's a free year of eligibility. You're not docked anything. Yeah. So he's basically said, I would rather sit out and do nothing this entire season than get in there and work to better myself. Maybe he saw the dumpster fire that was this team and said, hey, I'd rather wait a year, take my chances, get completely healed up, and head somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder. Like I said, I was hoping that McCaffrey would be the one for this year, but obviously that didn't pan out.
Right, man, and the play calling continues to be baffling on the offensive side of the ball. We're 2nd and 18, and we're running up the middle with our quarterback. 3rd and 8, we're running the ball. Like, that just shows if you don't have that confidence in your quarterback to throw on 3rd and 8, well, then you got the wrong quarterback in the game.
For sure.
Right? I mean, isn't that? I don't understand that. And just seeing him on the sidelines every time they would show Don Brown, he was completely. You can tell that the frustration level is just through the roof, man. It's to a point where they're just looking around like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, you said it exactly. It's like it's like they don't know what to do. They do not know how to right the ship, and I hate that because that's their job. That's what they are getting paid. However many millions of dollars that they are getting paid to do, and they aren't doing it.
And I still don't understand what Gaddis is doing with their running backs. Again, Charbonnet had the best night, 3 carries for 21 yards. I'll repeat,
which actually is pretty good average.
3 carries for 21 yards.
I said it's a good average.
Just unbeatable.
I didn't say we needed a lot more than 3 carries.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm saying, man, I just can't. The 3 carries part just boggles my mind. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put in for a transfer. It's like, man, I'm just gonna opt out. I'm gonna opt out of the rest of this dumpster fire of a season, and I'm gonna get out of here. If you're not gonna use me and use my talents, I mean, the running backs in this game had 11 total carries. You had Henning had 1. He's a wide receiver, and then Milton had, I think, 7, maybe something like that. But again, overall, the running game, 19 carries for 47 yards, coming off of a brutal week last week. Like this falls on the offensive scheme, man. I mean, you got to get. I get the offensive line is still dinged up, but you can only use that excuse for so long. All these players are young. Well, then you got to recruit better. You got to teach better. You got to get those backups to where they're 1A. For the life of me, I'm not an offensive line coach. I'm not an offensive lineman. But what in the world? That used to be a strength at the school, man. We used to produce great offensive linemen, and these last few years, it just hasn't happened.
I completely agree. I mean, we said back in the first podcast that we did lose a lot to the draft. But even losing a lot to the draft, man, where are your people that should be able to just step right up, next guy up, and fill your spot?
Clemson loses.
Where are those guys at?
Every year, Clemson loses a lot to the draft. Alabama loses a lot to the draft.
Yeah.
Ohio State loses a lot to the draft. And they have those guys that are ready. So I can't take that excuse especially from a coach who's supposed to be elite, who's making $7 to $8 million a year, and he's just.
Right.
It's like, man, your recruiting classes have been good, but you're not developing. Do you not know what to do? Like, you sign these kids, and then you're like, oh crap, now I got to teach them. Like, what's going on? I mean, Ed Warner's been Ed Warner's been a great coach, but my goodness, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know. Do you have to try to get that recruiting pipeline back in the Midwest because you've completely lost that? you're going more to New Jersey and Florida and California to get this speed or whatever. How about getting those big hoss cats from the Midwest like we used to? And it worked.
Obviously, I mean, look at what we just played. I mean, look at Wisconsin's boys. There are some big old fellers on that line, and they do what they are supposed to do, man. They push those defensive guys all over that field. Like you said, hit the Midwest. Hit Iowa. Iowa always has a good offensive line.
Always.
Wisconsin does. I mean, all the teams out there do.
And we always out-recruit those guys. So it's got to be teaching. It's got to be fundamentals. It's got to be technique.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you pull up the recruiting for the past, few years, we've recruited quite a few good, linemen. And not just linemen, but players in general. So at what point do you say, hey, this is all on the teaching, the coaching, where they have not been able to teach these guys to the point of where they should be right now. It's like they recruit them and be like, oh, you're a 4-star, so you should be able to figure this out on your own. And I mean, like, these are kids. Like, and that's what you get paid to do, is to teach these kids to be the best that they can be at their position to go to the NFL and win games while they're there.
We talked about that. We touched on the running backs and how they just 19 carries, 47 yards as a team. We'll talk about Milton. Milton ended up 9 for 19, 98 yards, 2 interceptions, and had one of the worst QBR quarterback ratings that I've ever seen at 8.3. McNamara ended up 4.7, 74 yards, a touchdown. He had a 97.5 QBR. But again, I've seen enough in these first 4 games to say that Milton needs to sit and Cade needs to get all the reps this week in practice, all the reps next week against Rutgers. Go from there, see how it goes. If he has a decent game, ride that into the next week. But a change is needed.
I completely agree.
Going back a little bit, talking about the defense, man, I looked up some stats over Michigan's last 6 games. They're 1-5, and they've given up an average of a little over 38 points a game in the last 6 games. I mean, that's unheard of at Michigan. They've given up 229 points, been outscored 229 to 148 in their last 6. That's unheard of.
Yeah, that'll drive anybody crazy right there. And that's just not something that you're used to seeing out of Michigan football at all. If anything, it's always been the defense that has been a cornerstone of that program.
Go back and look at the championship team in 97, man. If you want to see a defense that just oh my gosh, everybody nose to the ball, fiery defense. Obviously, you had the best defender in Michigan history, maybe the best defensive player in college football history in Woodson, but that team was just amazing. But going back to 2016's, Don Brown, I think 2016 was Brown's first year as the D coordinator.
I'm pretty sure.
His teams in 12 games, Michigan gave up 150 total points. This year in 4 games, they've given up 138 points.
Gosh. That's terrible. I remember, it was either 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there was one point where their defense, and I mean, I know obviously it's all in who you play, but they had 3 straight shutouts.
Yeah.
3 straight shutouts. 0 points. Not even a field goal. and now we're just giving up points left and right.
And I texted you last night. Obviously the measuring stick is always the Buckeye game, and we've kind of the last 20 years. Let's be honest, we've won twice or whatever. That game's kind of meaningless to us anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
if they keep Harbaugh around, I truly hope, and I hate to say this, I hope Day throws 100 points up on the board. I hope they just absolutely murder them, pull out all the stops, throw deep. I don't care if it's 90 to nothing in the third quarter. I want to see you keep throwing. I want to see you keep Fields in there. I want to see you score as much as you can and just demoralize this program. Maybe Ward Manuel will say, "Wow, it's time to go." Because I don't know that Ward fires Harbaugh. I think he brought this guy in who has, obviously he's a quote, the Michigan quote savior or whatever. And it just hasn't worked out. Does Harbaugh
But he
have
doesn't
it?
want to fire him because he doesn't want to admit that it just didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, does Harbaugh have the guts to say, you know what, I love this university more than I love, what we're doing right now, so I need to go ahead and step away. Do you think he has that in him, or does he have that stubbornness that says we're going to turn this around, we're going to turn this around? Because up to this week, he kept saying we're really close, we're really close. Well, 49-11 is not really close in anything.
No, and I agree. Like you said, I think that with the AD that it's going to be one of those. I don't want to admit that this isn't working because he's the one who went out and got Harbaugh and everything. So I really think that the best way for all parties involved would be, like you said, for Harbaugh to be like, it's just not working like I thought it would. And like you just said, I love this university, and I feel that what we're doing right now is not working, and he should owe it to the university and everyone else to say, I'm going to step down because the program's going in the wrong direction. I want it to right now.
Just brutal. I don't know if you watched the post-game conference on Big Ten Network, but he's like a deer in the headlights, man. He's completely lost. I think he's completely stunned at how things have just gone so wrong for him. He doesn't know what to say.
Absolute chaos right now.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to answer questions. I mean, where do you start besides saying we gotta blow this up, man? And where the heck is Andre Seldon? Why is this kid not getting a chance to play?
I don't know.
That frustrates me. I thought for sure we'd get to see him a little bit this week, but nope.
Yeah, I figured so too.
I read a tweet today that said Wisconsin's shortest drive of the game was 18 yards, right? And that was, that was on the first possession. That 18-yard drive was still longer than 8 of Michigan's 11 drives.
Wow.
So
in perspective, huh?
On 8 of 11 drives, they totaled less than 18 yards.
It's pathetic. I mean, I hate to say that because I love the team, I love the school, but that is just pathetic.
Unbelievable. John U. Bacon, I'm sure you know John. I've had you read some of his books, and great writer. He tweeted out, he said, this Michigan team is not awful. They aspire to be awful.
That's truth right there.
I was like, man, you're not wrong. This is I would take awful right now. This is just completely given up. This is completely abandoning everything you're about. I'm afraid it's just it's too far gone to get that respect for the coach back, and I've said it for 3 weeks now. I think Jim should step down. I think he just owes it to these players. I think he's not giving him what he promised there, and I don't know if there's other things going on with him. Maybe there's some underlying issues outside of the game, but that fire that he had is no longer there. It's just he's not the same coach we had a couple years ago. He's lost, anything he's had, any of that fire he's had, man. And we talked a couple weeks ago about replacements and where do you go from there, whether it be Matt Campbell, Brent Venables. People are saying Luke Fickell. Luke's not coming here. And I'm not sure I want Luke Fickell there. Maybe reach out to Bob Stoops. Stoops is 60 years old, but Stoops is a proven winner at Oklahoma. He's still got it in him. He doesn't look his age. He doesn't act his age. He wants to coach because he got back into the XFL when it came back. It's like maybe reach out to Stoops and say, okay, how about you be our little bridge for the next 5 years, and let's see what we can do. It's to me at this point it's worth a shot.
Right. I agree. And obviously it's always a feel good story when you can say well, he's a Michigan man. But looking back on all that, yes, Harbaugh went to Michigan and he's a Michigan man. He was supposed to be the savior, coming back and everything. But what is it really? Who's a Michigan man? I mean, look at Bub. Bub was coaching under Woody, the nemesis. I mean, you don't get much more opposite of a Michigan man prior to, going to Michigan than you do Bo Schembechler.
Right, and Bo's the one who kind of instilled that. He's the one who started that whole mantra, and I dug it.
Right, but that makes you question why. Like why? Because you didn't go there. You didn't. You were helping with Woody Hayes, and so the whole Michigan man thing. Like I get it. I love to see people who have went to a university come back and coach at that university. And look at Pat Fitzgerald. You talk about Pat a lot on the last couple of weeks. He's a great coach. He went to Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Paul Christ. He went to Wisconsin. He comes back. He's coaching Wisconsin. I like that because it's just a good story in general. But sometimes this stuff doesn't always work out. And in this case, it is not working out right now.
Yeah, I think the whole mantra. It's time to drop that. It's time to get past that whole Michigan
thing. Someone who's a proven winner.
Yeah.
You talk about someone slapping your kid's mama to bring some wins. I don't really care. Just get someone in there who will put a good effort into these kids and get them in the right direction. Get them back on track. Get it where we can get some wins in the win column. It's just because 1-3, Michigan is 1-3, and they talked about this on the game the other day. They have not been 1-3 since 1967.
Yep. This is by far to me this is the second worst team I've ever, I've been a fan for 30 plus years. It's the second worst team I've seen. Rich Rod's first year was the worst.
Well, he was SEC. He didn't go 1-3.
He didn't, but he went 3-9 overall, and just watching the talent on that team, and I get, it was a transition year, so I kind of give that a little bit more. It wasn't like he was in his sixth year of all of his players.
Exactly.
And so this,
that's the key right there. That was his first year, and this is Harbaugh's sixth.
Right.
Sixth year.
Yeah.
You should, in your sixth year at a program as storied as Michigan, you should be having every opportunity to play for a national championship and win Big Ten championships in your sixth year at Michigan.
You think at halftime last night? You think at halftime last night, Harbaugh went in and said, "Guys, Stephen Threed ain't walking through this door."
Oh gosh, man, it's terrible.
Well, man, I tell you, that's where I want to end the Michigan talk for this week. Again, 49-11.
I'm good with it.
49-11. Wisconsin comes in and just bum rushes them. Totally dominated the game. The time of possession, we talked about that a little bit, last week. How Wisconsin they dominate. They had the ball for 40 minutes and 15 seconds compared to 19 minutes and 45 seconds for Michigan. Held Michigan to 219 total yards of offense. Just brutal. Just all around brutal game. As far as we can still talk about our players of the game if you want to. If you want to throw those out there, if you want to go just Michigan, if you want to go to Michigan, Wisconsin, however you want to throw it out there, man. If you want to give a player of the game this week.
It'd be kind of hard to narrow down to one. To be honest, if I'm going to go with the player of the game in general, I don't really have a player because I'm giving it to Wisconsin's offensive line.
Exactly where I was going.
Dude,
man.
I mean, their running backs ran for over 6 yards a carry. 51 carries for 341 yards. We didn't even have 341 total yards. And they had 341 rushing yards. So, yeah, they came in and they pushed Michigan's defense around all night long and did whatever they wanted to. So, my player of the game is Wisconsin's offensive line.
I second it, man. I second it. And we knew that. We knew they were tough. How good they were.
Oh, for sure.
And they just every year. But I'm with you on that. I think the Brookhuizen player of the game. I'm giving it to Michigan's coaching staff. Serious. I mean, it's
I think agree with that.
It's to a point where it's man. We talked a little bit, and our buddy Don, was texting us during the game, and the thing it's taken my fandom The last 15, 20 years has done it slowly, piece by piece, but this year there's no emotion. I'm emotionless when it comes to it. I don't even get upset anymore, and that's when you've lost your fan base, when they don't care. When, they won, they lost. You don't want that. You want them to be mad. You want them to be upset. Because, man, when they're not and they're emotionless, you've completely lost them. It's hard to get that back.
I agree, and it's hard. Just watch same thing with the coach, with the players not having that emotion during the game. It's the same with when we watch the game. To when something happens, good or bad, we show that emotion, and right now it's like you just expect this crap show when you're sitting here watching it, and when things do happen, it's like you just expect it, and there's no element of surprise or fire or emotion or anything like that. It's just you just kind of take it all in and just roll with it.
Right. Well, hopefully, man.
Which is bad because I remember, of course, this is going back quite a few years, but I remember someone who, when Michigan lost, you didn't even want to talk to him for about the next day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's times where I remember when stuff would be going on here, whether it be high school football games or our Ohilco Festival uptown or whatever.
I remember it.
Yeah, Michigan loses that day. I'm not going up there. I don't want to hear. Because obviously being a Michigan fan in Buckeye country anyway.
Exactly. That makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like I said a couple weeks ago, they're arrogant. Everybody knows that. But they win. They win, so they can talk crap. Until that pendulum swings the other way, and it will.
Sure.
It will. I might be dead, but it will. It'll swing. At some point. But until then, man, talk away. There's not one thing I can do about it. There's not one retort I can have. Now I just go with the God bless, and that's all I say, man. That's cool. You want to talk your trash? That's fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore. Again, used to, man, I ain't going out of the house.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to get so upset, and now looking back, I'm 16, 17, 18 years older than these kids that are playing. And it's just, it's important to me. I still want them to win, and I still love it.
Oh, yeah.
And I still, over the last 12 years, how many thousands and thousands of dollars have we spent on this team? Driving up, watching them play, from hotels to food to, the tickets to the game to buying stuff at the M-Den. How much money have we, I probably spent well over $10,000. The last 10 or 12 years going up there, and it's to a point now where it's...
We had, tickets for 5 straight years, that ain't cheap. And you throw, like you say, you throw in gas and hotel and food and merchandise.
Yep, and
it all adds up. And, like you said, I love the team, I love to see them win, but daggone it, it makes it hard when, to go up and continue to support a team that just doesn't play with any emotion and doesn't have that fire and doesn't have the results. I'm not a fair weather fan. We watched it through the Rich Rodriguez days of 3-9, and I'll love them even if they don't win a game. But it sure makes it a lot easier when they're winning games.
I mean, they got beat 49-11 last night. I watched every play. I did not turn the game off early. I might go from watching it in the big room to into my room or whatever, but I don't turn the games off. I remember one time I turned a game off in the early 2000s. Michigan had to play on a Friday night against Minnesota due to the MLB playoffs, and turned the game. They were getting just waxed, man. They were down like 28-7. This game's over. No way they're coming back. Flip it back on a little bit later. It's like 28-21. Next thing you know, it's 28-28. Michigan ends up winning the game. I'm like, dude, never turn a game off because you never know. I mean, the likelihood of them coming back last night was not good. But then, once you accept that defeat, it's like, okay, let me watch for positives. Let me watch McNamara, see what he does. Let me watch, Ronnie Bell, see what he does. Because right now, really, Ronnie Bell's about, he's about that only fire on that team, man. I don't know what happened to Roman Wilson, why he didn't get a play last night. or why he didn't he didn't have any catches or any targets. But again, heck, we only threw, we only completed a few passes. I think 12 passes in total, or maybe 13 passes in total. For like 172 yards or something. So ball wasn't spread around that much, but yeah, I mean it's to a point of people try to text me and that's cool, man. I don't take it to heart anymore because it's just you've sucked my fandom away to a point of, again, I'll still root for you, I still want you to win, but my goodness, it's hard. It's hard to get up, and it even sucked it out of me so much that I'm a big Tom Brady fan. Watching their game today, Brady had a great game. 3 touchdowns, 350-odd yards. I really didn't even enjoy that. And I hate it. I'm just sitting there waiting for something bad to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, my goodness, dude, enjoy it. When you get to a point when you can't enjoy the games, it's like, I don't want to be there because I'm a sports fan. I want to enjoy it. I want to sit and watch. But if you reach that point of, what am I doing? And you completely, disconnect. It's like, it's hard to come back from that. You find other interests, you get away from things, and then I don't want to be that guy because I do enjoy watching it. And again, just it comes back to frustration to a point of. But again, they're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. They're trying their best. I was a college athlete, obviously on a much, much, much smaller scale. My team, when I played ball in college, we went 7-47 my freshman year. 7-47. That's brutal. We were awful.
Yeah.
But we still tried. We still tried hard. Well, minus our seniors, and some juniors. My freshman year, the last couple trips of the season, they just didn't go. This was how little discipline we had. Like, where's our starting first baseman? They're not coming. They're not coming? What do you mean they're not? They don't have that option. What are you giving them an option to come for, dude? They would be golfing on days of the game. Like, what are you guys doing? They just didn't show up. We would have optional practices. And to me, it's like all discipline. It all starts from the top. And that's where Harbaugh's going right now. There's just not that. He doesn't have control of his team. He's completely lost control. And that's the time you have to go. You have to, for the love of God, call a press conference. Even if you want to stick it out through the end of the year, call a press conference and say, look, at the end of the year, I'll be stepping away. We're going to do what we can these next 5-6 weeks to put the best product on the field we can. But I think it's in the best interest of the university and myself that I step away at this time, or whatever. That gives them time to start looking for somebody else. Go ahead. The recruits that are going to leave, let them leave. It's going to happen. For some reason, a lot of times recruits are drawn to a coach, which you see the product on the field. Why would you be drawn to that right now? Why would you want to come and play for this system?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's, again, like you just said, that a lot of those recruits, they want to go play for that coach. Well, why do you want to play for? Have you watched these games? Have you seen the blank stares, the emotionless slate across his face these past 4 games? Why would you want to go play for that?
Very frustrating. Like I said, man, the guy that we hired is not the same guy anymore. Now he's got the nose boner with that mask on his face with that thing sticking out like 12 inches. Like, what are you doing, man? Take that microphone outside that mask. You look stupid. But anyway, man, rambled too long about that. Rambled too long. Let's move on a little bit. Let's move on to more of the Big Ten. Obviously, the Ohio State-Maryland game canceled. That game will not be made up, which hurts, in my opinion. That hurts Ohio State. If for some reason one or more of their games would be canceled, can you really justifiably put a team that's maybe 5-0 or 6-0 in the college football playoff against a team that maybe played 11 or 12 games? I mean, even if they are one of the best teams, it's like that hurts them. They need to play all the games that they can to kind of to kind of show that the country what they are. But so that game obviously wasn't played. Friday night game, you had Iowa just ransacking Minnesota 35-7. Each week that win that we had against Minnesota just
it's worse and worse every time.
It's so bad.
Which is sad because I actually thought that Minnesota was a pretty decent team. Boy, was I wrong.
Minnesota's only bright spot. Our boy Mohamed Ibrahim had a great game again. 33 carries, 144 yards. He's now got 715 yards and 10 touchdowns on the season, so he continues to play well.
And that seems as though between him and Bateman, that's about all he got.
Right. It's funny that you got two for sure NFL. Bateman probably first or second round pick for sure, and Ibrahim's playing his way up to possibly top 3 rounds. And you're just, man, it shows that those skill positions you got to have offensive line, you got to have defensive line. Man, they clearly don't. Iowa seem to have turned it around a little bit since that terrible start. Of course, they've beaten 2 pretty bad teams in Minnesota and Michigan State, who laid an egg at home and got beat 24-0 by Indiana. Again, now that loss to Michigan State continues to look worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know did you get to see any of that game at all?
No, I didn't see any of it. I just saw the final, and I didn't even want to look at anything else.
It was 24-0 Indiana, but it really could have been about 50-0. Honestly, there were a couple times that Indiana went for it on 4th downs, turned it over on downs. Penix threw a couple bad interceptions, but he ended up with a great game. I think he had 25. He was 25 for 38, 320, 2 TDs. But Ty Freifogel, oh my lord, 11 catches, 200 yards, 2 TDs. Coming off that huge game against Michigan the week before. Like, he's really stepped up. Clearly an all Big Ten receiver.
For sure.
For Michigan State, Lombardi got replaced. He got pulled for Peyton Thorne. He threw a couple picks. But Indiana held Michigan State to 191 total yards, and Michigan State fell back into that turnover mode and turned the ball over 4 times.
Yeah, that hurts. And I tell you, it makes it even worse thinking about it, because with Lombardi getting pulled, how bad does that really make our defense look? Because our defense made him look like a Heisman candidate.
Unreal.
And then 2 games later, he's getting pulled. I mean, that's bad.
I agree, man. I agree. And even against us, everybody was like, oh, I thought Lombardi looked great. I mean, if you watch it, he just kind of threw it up at Vincent Gray all day. And Gray was so bad. Those receivers, Ricky White just went and said, hey, I'll take that one. And he ended up with a career game. So I don't buy Lombardi. I didn't buy him coming into the season. And they're going to have a little controversy there. Peyton Thorne threw the ball pretty well when he came in. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if they stick with him for next week. But we got...
Real quick, speaking of Vincent Gray, I have to throw this one out there. There was... I know I touched you on this one, and it was early in the game.
Yep.
Dude, I saw this on the TV, and I was rolling. I mean, I was laughing hysterically. It's still funny. They had, because when they come up, they always have like the impact players at the game. Of course, they got like 2 players for Wisconsin, 2 players for Michigan. They got Vincent Gray on an impact player. Have they watched the last 3 games?
No idea where they were going with that.
I was rolling on that one.
I'm with you.
I don't know what the people what station was it even on.
Yeah.
Anyway, whoever it was that does their stats obviously was not paying attention.
Yeah, that was Herbie. That was Herbie's player to watch. One of the players to watch at the game. I didn't quite understand that either. I guess
I think what he meant was the player to watch as the ball flew over his head continuously.
Yeah, they're like, you'll realize which one he is because you'll be seeing his name all night.
Exactly.
Because his back will be turned to the ball. I'm with you. I don't know, man. Maybe they just said, hey, it's up to him to kind of. Because I'm sure they were thinking that Graham was going to throw the ball more and probably pick on him. So if he was going to be able to step up and stop those plays, but fortunately, I guess he didn't look too bad because they didn't have to. They just ran the ball down our throats.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Well, back to the
Anyway, sorry.
That's okay, man. Yeah, absolutely. Back to the Big Ten scores. Northwestern stays undefeated, beating Purdue 27-20 in what I didn't watch. I watched a couple plays. Moore was out for Purdue for I don't even know why he was out. I don't think he was hurt, but he's an explosive wide receiver to watch for Purdue. He's fun to watch, but I didn't get to watch but more than maybe 5 or 6 plays of that game. It looked brutal. I read the stats. Northwestern had 292 total yards. Purdue had like 245 total yards. So just not an offensive game. And you would think with those two teams, who are usually
Right.
offensive oriented. They would be putting up more yards than that. But kudos to Northwestern, man. I like to see I'm glad to see
Yeah.
them playing well. Again, I really like Fitzgerald. I always like to watch them play. So good to see that Illinois finally eked out a win over Rutgers, beating them 23-20 on a field goal late. Of course, we got Rutgers next week, and again, Isaiah Pacheco always scares me. He had 20 carries, 134 yards. Illinois, as a team, ran the ball 59 times for 338 yards. So remember that next week when we go into Piscataway and play Rutgers. Illinois just put up 338 yards on 59 carries. So we'll come back to that. We'll touch on that next week, when we see what Michigan did against them. I mean, Illinois they had two guys with over 100 yards. One guy, 31 carries, 192 yards and a touchdown. That was Isaiah Williams. And then they had, I think the kid's name was Chase Brown, 17 carries, 131 yards. So, between two kids, they had 320 yards, combined. Just unbelievable, man. So I'm anxious to see what our offensive scheme is next week with a team that just gave up that many rushing yards.
So we could at least expect, to possibly get close to 100 rushing yards.
Man, you're going triple digits. I was hoping for 70.
Well,
Goodness gracious. Last game,
I'm being an optimist there.
right. Last Big Ten game of the week was Penn State, Nebraska. I watched that entire game. Penn State is just struggling, man. They go into Nebraska, get down really big early. Nebraska ends up holding on, winning 30-23. Luke McCaffrey got his first start for Nebraska. Doesn't look great throwing the ball, but ended up 13 for 21, 152 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Also carried the ball 13 times for 67 yards and a touchdown. I like watching that kid play. Again, he's a McCaffrey, so his pedigree's great, but he's got a lot of work to do as far as throwing the ball. He almost seems more like he should be like a scat back or a slot receiver. He just seems a little bit too small to be a quarterback. Well, Penn State, man, Sean Clifford got pulled. He got pulled. Will Levis came in and threw decent. I think he was still under 50% completion percentage, but he kind of turned it around a little bit, got him back in the game. So again, I don't know if there'll be a little quarterback controversy there, but with Penn State, they've been decimated with injuries. They're Micah Parsons, obviously he opted out for the season. Their Journey Brown, who's going to be their starting running back, ends up getting hurt. It was reported that he's going to miss the entire season, and then unfortunately, I read this week where he has to medically retire from the game. So he's got some issues. Last year he was their leading running back with 890 yards, 12 touchdowns, averaged almost 7 yards a carry. So they were looking for big things from him coming into the year, and man, you hate it for the kid because he's going to be a stud, probably going to be an NFL talent. And now he has to medically retire, which, too bad, man. I think they're down a couple other running backs, so Penn State's really reeling right now. It's hard to feel sorry for James Franklin. I'm not a huge fan of him, but you got to look at it, that way and say, man, he, what else can he do right now? I mean, he's kind of almost in a similar situation as Harbaugh is,
I agree. Yeah.
One other game I wanted to touch on. Florida and Arkansas. My gosh. Last week I put Justin Fields as the runaway winner of the Heisman. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm flipping that just because, Ohio State's only played, 2 games? Or 3 games.
You throwing Trask up in there?
Kyle Trask is this kid. If you've not been watching Florida, and I'm sure, he plays against SEC defenses. Well, I don't care who he plays against. Man, I mean, this kid was 23 for 29, 6 touchdowns. And he didn't even play much of the fourth quarter. They brought him out, brought the young kid in. But through this part of the season, he has 28 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and has thrown for 2,171 yards. And Florida's 5-1. So, it's going to be Florida versus Alabama in the SEC championship game most likely. If he can run the table, man, Florida's going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
And this kid, again, once Ohio State plays more games, Fields is going to put up ridiculous numbers. But right now, Kyle Trask he's blowing me away. And he had his biggest target was out with a concussion. Pitts was out this week. So
Yep, he was. I saw that.
So that's my new that's my new Heisman
impressive.
front
I
runner.
mean, yeah, those are some impressive numbers. And I didn't see that game, but I saw a little bit of the highlights, and I did not realize that Arkansas's quarterback, Felipe Franks,
Yeah.
he was just at Florida a couple years ago.
Yep, former Florida quarterback.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Out there was a little different. I didn't even realize that he had even transferred. I just assumed he graduated or still there not playing. I didn't know that he had actually transferred to Arkansas.
I believe he was the quarterback at the game that Dad and I went to out in Dallas a few years ago. He was Florida's starting quarterback that game.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, Florida's playing well, and Florida's always been probably my second favorite team. Going back to love Danny Warfel, love Tim Tebow. I was a huge Steve Spurrier fan. Spurrier's probably after Bo. Obviously, I was too young to really follow Bo when he was coaching, but just from the prestige and everything from the romance of Michigan to me, Bo will always be up top. I love Lloyd Carr, but Steve Spurrier, after any Michigan coach, Steve Spurrier is probably my favorite coach of all time. I love to watch his Florida teams. Even when Meyer was at Florida, I didn't like Meyer, as did zero Ohio State fans like the guy either until he came there. But I still liked watching Florida play. I love Tebow. I liked a lot of the guys they had. So it's fun to see. I kind of gravitate toward them, and since Michigan's having such a down year, it's fun to watch a team like that or a team like Oklahoma. I really enjoy watching Oklahoma play. I just hate that Oklahoma's always one of those teams that chokes. They're kind of like Georgia. They'll get to that point, but when that big game's on the line, they just choke it out. But man, I really enjoy watching Florida play. So it's fun to see what Trask's doing down there.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like you said, if they can run the SEC and get past Alabama, there's no reason that they would not have be in the final four. I mean, obviously you can't keep them out.
And Alabama.
And with that being said, I mean, he's throwing up those kind of numbers and being able to get past Alabama, then they obviously deserve that right to play.
Right, and Alabama's a little bit banged up right now. They had their game canceled this weekend with big game. Even though LSU's not having a great year, it's still Alabama LSU. It's still always a tough game. So that game was not canceled; it was postponed. They'll make it up at some point. Don't know when, but I think all those SEC games that they postponed, I think they're going to try to make those up. Whereas unfortunately the Ohio State Maryland game will not be made up. But moving on to next week, man. Friday night we got Purdue, Minnesota. It seems like Minnesota plays all these Friday night games. You got Michigan State and Maryland Saturday at noon. That I like watching Maryland, man. I like this young Tagovailoa. Maybe he'll be like his.
I do too.
Maybe like his brother.
Yeah, interesting to see. I don't like watching Maryland just because of their hideous uniforms and helmets.
They're pretty bad, huh?
Oh, that hurt the eyes, man.
I think they got the second worst.
It's funny because Christina, like when they're on TV, she'll walk by and see there, and she's like, "Those uniforms are ugly."
They're rough. I think.
Oh yeah, I know.
I think Illinois and Northwestern tie for the ugliest in the conference, but Maryland's up there. To me, Northwestern's outfits are just. They're kind of the bland knockoff. They almost look like if Starter had outfits. You know what I mean? Like they're really bad.
You think it's because of the colors? Because of the black and purple?
I don't know, man. I like it. I like the old school Northwestern uniform, Darnell Autry days, but now with the Under Armour, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know, man. They're just not good. They're not good. And Illinois' uniforms, go back to your old uniforms, man. Those burnt orange things, not good. Yeah. But and then of course you got the big one in Columbus. You got number 9 Indiana coming into number 3 Ohio State. I say big one. I don't think it's going to be close. Indiana's playing a little bit. They're playing a little bit over their head. They have some talent, and Penix has been throwing well. Fryfogel's going to be hard to guard. Ohio State has a few holes in the secondary. They have places where you can kind of pick that defense apart. But offensively, I just think they're going to steamroll. I think they'll win by at least 17 in that game.
Yeah, I agree. They'll put up plenty of points. the big thing there is, you might have Ohio State's corners, obviously, they're better than our corners right now. They might be able to throw over their corners, but the big thing there is Ryan Day and their defensive staff will make the adjustments to be able to have their safeties help them out. So, to be honest, I think Indiana will get behind, and they will have to throw the ball, and you're going to see at least 2 picks come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And but like you said, you have a win by 17. I'll at least give them at a minimum 2 touchdowns to win by. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's hard enough to go in there to that stadium and win. Ohio State coming off a week where they didn't get to play, they're going to be juiced up, they're going to be ready, and they're going to roll. Illinois, Nebraska next week. I see Nebraska winning that game. I think with McCaffrey back there, I think that kid's just going to continue to get better. Illinois is pretty bad. Even though they beat Rutgers this week, I see Nebraska winning that game. You got number 10 Wisconsin versus number 19 Northwestern, which should be a fun game. That's at Evanston, so Wisconsin, coming off just a shellacking there in the big house, putting it to Michigan. They got to go to Evanston and play. I look for Northwestern to keep that a little close for a while. I really do. I think with that offense they run, and Northwestern has Peyton Ramsey, who he's a veteran. He came over from Indiana. He starting quarterback at Indiana for a few years, so he knows how to control the game a little. His numbers this year aren't great, but I think Northwestern keeps it close. I think they keep it within 14, but I think Wisconsin ultimately gets that win.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
You got Iowa going into Penn State. Again, Penn State's just reeling. Iowa's coming off of 2 wins in a row, but I think this is where Penn State gets off the schneid. I think Penn State's gonna knock off Iowa, get their first win of the season. Again, I don't know. Say that again.
Happy Valley.
It is. Yep, it's at University Park, Beaver Stadium there in Happy Valley. So
yeah, that's a tough place to play. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's obviously there's fans right now, but still, that's tough.
Yeah, I think they just get off the schneid. I think Iowa's won 2 weeks in a row, but they've beaten a couple pretty weak teams. So I think Penn State finally gets that first win. And then you got the night game. Michigan goes to Piscataway to play Rutgers.
What's with all the night games?
I don't know, but I kind of like it because I have to work. I have to work at the hospital next weekend.
Yeah, that's fair.
And night games don't ruin my day. I can have a fun, first half of the day, and then even if it's bad, even though like we said earlier, I don't take it as hard as I used to, but at least I don't have to worry about crap, they lost. Now what? You know what I mean? Now I can be like, hey, I can.
It's 3:30 and my day is ruined.
Anytime you can delay that inevitable, man. But I think again, it's Rutgers. Not taking anything away from Rutgers, but I think Michigan goes up there. I think McNamara starts. I think you have to start him. I would like to see Zach and Haskins get 10 carries each. I don't know if that's going to happen.
At least.
But I think Michigan wins this, and this is where we'll go to our pick for the week. Our score prediction with Michigan Rutgers. I'll let you go first. Give me your thoughts.
All right. Well, honestly, makes me a little nervous just because Rutgers threw up 27 we talked about last week on Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that, so I don't know. I know you said there was a bunch of trick plays and stuff they did, but still, with the way our defense is right now, it's just it's just uncertain there, and I got an uneasy feeling about it. I like you said, I hope they play Cade and play him all game. Don't even let Milton on the field. Just so that Cade can try to get in there, get a rhythm, establish himself and his game. Hopefully they can get some good rushes in there, not run from the middle all the time for 1 yard. Overall, I hope that they can have just a good, complete game. And I'm going to say Michigan wins. Overall, I will throw out, I'll say 27-17.
That's close to where I was going, man. I was going 24-17. I think we put it in the end zone a couple times. I think we, hopefully this gets us off the schneid for a few weeks. put a couple wins together. Because, man, it's going to be tough. You know, if we don't get this win, whew, I mean, where's it coming? Where's it coming from? So hopefully we can get this one, go up to Piscataway and get a big win. You know, we went up there a few years ago and beat them 78-0. I don't see that happening, but I think we're gonna, you know, I think some stuff's gonna come together a little bit. I still have no faith, no trust in this team, so I think they should put up, you know, much more than they are. I think they're gonna struggle again throwing the ball just because I think you're gonna have Cade in there and first start jitters. I think they're gonna have continued, you know, trouble running the ball. But I think they'll do just enough to score a couple times, maybe pull away in the second half. 24-17, Michigan wins.
That sounds good. Sounds good.
Well,
I just motioned for our other guest picker.
Yeah, tell him to bring some mojo this week. Good Lord.
No kidding. So I'm going to put him on speaker. That way he can hear. There you go. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Adam, my man.
Hi, buddy. Hey, what's up, Rutgers?
It's time to give your prediction for this week, man. Last week, we all won because we all thought they would get beat. But this week, dude, bring us some good mojo. What are you thinking? Michigan versus Rutgers.
I'm thinking Michigan got a good chance this time. As long as, I can't remember his name, the fullback.
Mason?
They can give him the ball.
Mason?
Yeah. They can give him the ball a little bit more.
They don't even give the running back the ball.
I know, but that's what they got to do. They got to get in the backfield. He's a powerhouse.
He is.
He needs to get through there and they need to execute that. As long as they can do it, I think they'll have a good chance against Rutgers.
All right, what do you think, score-wise?
Michigan, 21-10.
Ooh. As a wise man once said, I like you and I like your style.
Ooh. Bring me some Jerry Lamb.
All right, man.
Like it.
Well, we need to touch a little bit. We had a question there last week from Vince Crace talking about. He wanted us to touch on the targeting rule and different things about targeting, and I kind of, didn't leave that up to you, but I kind of sent that out to you and wanted to see what are your thoughts. Talk a little bit about the targeting rule. Any specific plays that you've seen that obviously the targeting rule is put in to protect the players. It's been put in the last few years, and it's been a little controversial because there's been some plays that kind of right on that borderline. Anytime helmet to helmet, they're calling it. Whether anytime it's shoulder to helmet, anything to the helmet, they're calling this targeting. And what are your thoughts on that? How do you think? Do you think they're policing that correctly? Do you think that needs to be a little more lenient?
Man, I'm telling you, there's a huge gray area there when it comes to targeting. I have seen quite a few targeting calls that have really changed the landscape of the game. Because you take a big targeting call and eject a player, a team's best defender, big linebacker or something, or something like that, and it can completely change the game for that team. And I have seen that. I've seen quite a few where, in both NFL and college, where you take a big guy like that, and it really does make a difference in the game. I think that it's a tough decision as far as, who really makes that call, because I don't really know if it's the official that's down there looking at it, or if it's someone like up in a booth saying this is targeting. But you were talking about looking up like the rules and the specifics on targeting, and from what I could tell, it says any forcible contact to the head or neck area, or leading with the crown of the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Against a defenseless player. And I get that, they do want to make the game safer for these players, which is great because, I've said before, I don't want anybody to get hurt. If you could play this game and be sure that no one gets hurt, it would be amazing. Because then you could obviously really tell you got your best on your best, as opposed to, oh, well, he was out, so, if he was playing, it was a completely different game and all this. But that's neither here nor there. It's just these players, these are their livelihood, and obviously you don't want them getting hurt for their own health's sake and the amount of money that these teams have wrapped up in some of these players. But it's hard to really know if a player is targeting for sure. I mean, I would hope to think that no player would intentionally try to take someone out of the game. And as fast as these people are nowadays, and as fast as these plays happen, you might have someone coming in with their head up like you're supposed to tackle, and right at the last second, that receiver will tuck his head down, which, you're talking just a few inches, but that few inches might be the difference between getting hit, in the head or neck area or in the shoulder. And in that case, it's not the defender's fault that they tuck their head down and completely change the angle of, their trajectory and where they're at. And then you're going to call targeting on that. Well, the defender was heading towards his chest. It's not the defender's fault that he tucked down or lowered his shoulder, which caused him to get hit in the head or neck. So I really think it's obviously, it's all up to whoever it is that's making these decisions, and I wouldn't want that job to have to make that decision. But I really think it's a hard decision to make.
I agree. When I started looking a little bit today, the first video that popped up was actually from the Nebraska-Ohio State game this year, and I don't know if maybe Vince was referencing that game or not, but they called a targeting penalty on, I believe, I can't remember the kid's name for Nebraska, but they called it targeting. He got tossed on Ohio State receiver, and watching it, I mean, even the announcers, I think it was Joel Klatt and over-exaggerating Gus Johnson, who every play is just the greatest play ever. I think it was those two during the call, and even they disagreed. Joel Klatt's like, I don't like that's not a good call. And me watching it, the guy led with his shoulder. He hit the guy high, but again, he did everything right. So it's right. Like, what do you teach these kids? Tackling is not good these days anyway. People aren't taught the right way. They're just trying to shoulder guys out of bounds instead of wrapping them up. First thing I would do if I was a coach, I would get Chris Spillman to my school and say, Chris, teach these kids how to tackle. Chris Spillman is one of the best tacklers I've ever seen in my life. Obviously, great college player at Ohio State, great player for the Lions in NFL. But I don't know if you've ever watched much of Spillman or seen many of his clips, but this man he knows how to tackle. But tackling's so brutal anyway anymore. It's like, what are these kids supposed to do? And I agree, if you launch into somebody with the crown of your helmet, or if you go at them with your shoulder into their helmet, okay, that should be called. And I get with CTE being as bad as it is, and we're knowing more and more about it, they're going to want to take more and more precautions. But it's to a point of, it's to me, it's kind of waters the game down a little bit. I want everybody to be safe. It's kind of like roughing the passer calls. I saw one today in the Buccaneers. Actually, I saw two today in the Buccaneers-Panther game. One was against Brady that was just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. It should not have been called. Everybody will say, oh, Brady gets all the calls. Well, so does Manning, and so does Rodgers, and so does, all the big names are going to get those calls. And then they had one on Teddy Bridgewater that was the same thing. It's like, roughing the passer, I don't get it. I know they're erring on the side of caution, but it's to a point of, guys, you're taking all the technique, you're taking everything that these kids are taught, and you're kind of saying, now that you know all that stuff and how to do it, we want you to change. And you can't do that. If you've been taught correctly, that's how you got to do it. And like you said, it changes the complexion of games. Kids not only get ejected for that game, but then they're going to, if it's the second half, they're going to miss the first half of the following game. And that could be brutal depending on who you are or who you're playing. So it's like you said, there's a lot of gray areas there. We want to keep the kids as safe as possible, and the NFL guys. You want to keep everybody as safe as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's got to be,
with Adam playing, he's played, and they teach they teach what's called heads-up tackling. And that the whole thing is, obviously you don't want to put your head down because by putting your head down and hitting something, it can compress the disc, and it can really injure yourself
For
more
sure.
than anything. So they teach them the heads-up tackling, and if you launch yourself into someone like you said, then yeah, I get it. That obviously it's going to be a targeting call, and with good reason. You don't just launch into someone's head or neck. But if you're running full steam at a defender, you lower down to get, because that's what they're taught. You get low, get a wide base, and then you press through, you grab, and now they're taught to wrap and roll as opposed to actually drive through a player. I don't know if it's more for safety of like where your head's down, that way you don't get compressed that way, or if it's more for the person you're tackling. But now they're taught to actually wrap and roll with whichever way they're going to bring the player down. I don't know. I just, like you said, it's a gray area. It's a tough thing to make that decision on whether or not someone's really trying to take someone out of the game.
And
I would hope, like I said, for everyone's sake, that players are not trying to take people out of the game just for their own health and livelihood. But you obviously have some people who just don't care, and yeah, I think they do try.
I think there's got to be something in place that if it's blatantly obvious, then okay, you can eject the kid. But if it's helmet to helmet and you can tell that he didn't mean to do it, you can't just, okay, if you want to throw a flag, but don't call everything that's helmet to helmet like that targeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't eject the kid.
That's the whole thing is that they'll call it targeting to begin with, and then they review it.
Mm-hmm.
That way they can either say, okay, well, it is targeting, let's toss him, or, okay, no, it was not targeting, so therefore he can stay in the game. As opposed to the opposite, where if you don't say it's targeting to begin with, and it really was, then they can't toss him out because it wasn't called targeting to begin with.
Right. Like you said, a lot of gray areas there, and
there is.
I know with the CTE, you want to make it safer, but it's a brutal sport. Like, it's a brutal sport. You're going to get hurt.
Exactly.
There's going to be career-ending injuries. There's going to be life-altering injuries. Unfortunately, that's just part of the game. I mean, how much safer do you make it? Do you make it to a point of, well, number 21, you tackled too hard. We're going to have to ask you to sit out a couple plays. Like, at what point, it's just a different game. I mean, I don't know if I like, I don't know. Again, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see anybody go down with a spinal injury. I've seen that quite a few times throughout, my time watching football, and it sucks and you hate it. But how many times has that actually happened on a play that was where the guy actually launched himself into somebody else? You know what I mean? What's the statistics for that versus statistics for a guy just gets a good hit on a guy and he goes down, or somebody just tears an ACL, or you know what I mean? Something on a hit or not even a hit, just cutting here, cutting there, well, your career might be over or jumping up for a ball and you come down and you fracture your leg. Like, there's all these different things that could alter your career, alter your life. I just don't know how far you take the targeting rule. I don't know how far you take it. I don't know how you go about saying, this is targeting, this is not targeting. Is that subjective to each crew, like you were saying? Is it objective? Is it, okay, this is in the rules. If you do this, this is targeting. Like, there's still so much subjectivity in it.
Yeah, I agree. And it wouldn't surprise me that if at some point I would hate to see this because to me this is just part of the game, that they take out the kickoff.
That's brutal. That's another thing that frustrates me.
And the reasoning behind that is probably most of the brutal hits that I see in a game comes on the special teams kickoff because these players have such a full, steam rolling down field that you can drill someone. You know, you're running, 30, 40 yards downfield to be able to hit someone, as opposed to, being on the line of scrimmage, lined up across from someone. It's just you've got so much more momentum to hit someone on a special teams play like that. And I know it's been talked about, them taking the kickoff out. But, I obviously hate to see if that's what it would come down to, because to me that's just part of football.
Yeah, and it's pretty much non-existent anymore anyway. The Devin Hesters of the world, those days are over. They keep moving it up so far that pretty much 90% of the kickoffs go through the end zone anyway. And that's brutal. And now in college football, you can fair catch any kickoff. What is that about?
Yeah, I don't understand that one bit. Like, that ball comes down at the 5-yard line and you catch it, but you called for a fair catch. That doesn't make any sense. If that's the case, let the ball hit the ground and go onto the end zone. If you catch it, you're fair game. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I hate that rule change that they put in there a few years ago. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But
again, like we said, it's because of the safety of the players.
Sure. And again, I don't want it to sound like I'm not, I don't want that brutality and whatever. I still want the game to be hard hitting and that kind of thing. But I do want it to be safe. But I also don't want it to be safe to a point of, man, this is not fun. The refs are throwing flags on every play. And again, the roughing the passers to me are the worst. Because some of those calls, he drove through him and drove him into the ground. Well, he released the ball a split second before he wrapped him up. You can't just stop your momentum. Like, some of that stuff just blows my mind. But anyway, man, I'm glad we touched on that. Vince, thank you for the question. Thanks for the suggestion to talk about it. So yeah, man, anything else as we wrap up this week? Any other final words you got?
Oh, not really. I just hope they can actually put together a decent performance next week and walk away with a win.
I hope so, man. I hope so. Well, I guess we'll find out then. So until next week, go Blue.
Go Blue.
There you go, everybody. That was this week's episode with my co-host, Bub Dunn. Again, thanks, everybody, for listening. If you guys have any questions like Vince did, or if you have anything you'd like us to talk about or focus on, or any specific team or player, shoot me a message. Shoot me a message on YouTube. Shoot me a message, text message, Facebook message, whatever, and let me know. Same with Bub. If you got any questions or anything that you'd like him to discuss, shoot him a message on Facebook as well. But again, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with the 21st episode of Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast.